What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of GameScript, looking at the Baltimore Ravens versus the Los Angeles Chargers on Monday Night Football. And it's a game that's setting up to be a shootout, which means we're going to have to approach our lineup building for DraftKings Showdown in a certain way, and I'll get into it right after this. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of GameScript. I'm Simon Edwards, aka Pumacom with Heat Seeker Sports, and we are looking at the Baltimore Ravens versus the Los Angeles Chargers in this one. We got a 50.5-point total with the Ravens as 2.5-point favorites. If you've been watching, I've been right on with the outcomes of the games for these last few GameScript episodes. Haven't gotten the players quite there. I almost got it with the Browns game recently. I had Jameis Winston as a captain option, and then when I wrote my final captain option later on in the comments section, I had Nick Chubb as a captain. He ended up being the highest scoring guy on the slate, and Winston also had a big game. It's just been one or two guys off of nailing the exact builds on these. And last night was the Philadelphia Eagles game, and I had the right outcome. I figured the Eagles would win in a blowout situation. Just didn't get the right captain in that one. I was trying to spend down on captain so I could get more studs in the lineup, but it turned out that the winning lineup actually had one of those dumpster dive type of guys in the lineup who scored 0 points. And ended up shipping the thing, but it ended up being like something like 100-person split or something like that, or one of those big splits where the first prize goes down from about like a few 100,000 to about like 13,000, but still can't complain about that. Can't complain about winning 13,000. So make sure to hit that like button, get us to 30 likes so we can put out a shorter video when we get a little bit closer to lock. Make sure to subscribe to the channel because you're going to want to get the alerts when those videos and those shows get posted. And it's usually not a set schedule, so it's good to get the alerts for those. I'm also trying to get to 1,250 subscribers before Thanksgiving. I'm about I need about 10 left to get to 1,200. So help me get to that at least. I appreciate that. And let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at the slate here. So like I said, it's the Ravens versus the Chargers. Looks like they're playing in LA. So they got a dome situation. We don't have to worry about Baltimore weather, which is a good thing. Lamar Jackson is obviously going to be probably the highest floor on the slate, and he's going to be a popular probably captain option for good reason because he's been one of the highest and most consistent scoring fantasy options. He dudded out against Pittsburgh last week. Pittsburgh has played him well over the years, but I would imagine in this game he's going to have a different situation. It's a defense that favors his playing style more. So I think that is going to play a role in this game shooting out. We're going to want to try to jam in as many studs as we can. So I'm probably going to stay away from these high priced studs again, just like I did in the Eagles game where I went with Dallas Goedert as my captain option. Goddard was set up to have a decent game, but he just didn't get the targets, and the Eagles had run away with it about halfway through the game, and there really wasn't any opportunity for Goddard to get to that captain role. So Derrick Henry is the next guy, another guy that should benefit from the way that this defense defends the run. The Chargers have been pretty good against the run, only allowing 17.2 DraftKings points a game. But the way that Derrick Henry runs and the type of defense that favors a team like the Ravens is what the what the Chargers run. So it's going to be a situation where Derrick Henry is set up to also have a decent game, along with Lamar Jackson in this one. Justin Herbert is also set up for a good game. You can see why this is shaping up to be a shootout. Baltimore has been one of the worst defenses in the league against the pass. They're allowing 21.4 DraftKings points a game to the Chargers. They are definition of a pass funnel defense. They're good against the run, but not so great against the pass. And Herbert has been on a roll recently. We've seen it with 25 DraftKings points, 19 DraftKings points. He's hit 20 plus DraftKings points basically for the past 4 weeks, just under 20 in a couple of those weeks. But Herbert is in a good situation here against Baltimore in a game that should be back and forth type of setup. J.K. Dobbins does not have a good setup. Ravens have been good against the run. They have only allowed 20.5 DraftKings points a game to the run. I would anticipate this being more pass happy. If Dobbins' ownership comes in low, that would make him interesting because we've seen it a lot lately where these guys where we're expecting to be in bad matchups come in low owned, but then they end up scoring 2 touchdowns in a game. So, keep that in mind with Dobbins. Zay Flowers, same benefits as Lamar Jackson with a team, facing off against a team that favors the Ravens playing style and Lamar's, passing style. Plus, on top of that, Zay Flowers is, running a decent amount in the slot. He's running 37% of his routes in the slot, where the Chargers are the weakest. They're giving out 17.7 DraftKings points a game to the slot. So that's going to set up Flowers to have a decent setup. It's going to be tough to get all these guys into our lineups. We got McConkey, another guy with a good setup. He had his biggest game last week as far as a usage perspective. Ended up getting 123 yards, only 20. He had 21.3 DraftKings points. His biggest game is 32 DraftKings points against New Orleans, but he didn't score any touchdowns last week. Which would have, elevated him to probably having one of his best games. He did have one of his best games, but even his best game of the season. Quentin Johnson last time we had the Chargers on the showdown slate against Cincinnati, and I had Johnson as my captain option. Johnson ended up having a decent game. He got 8 targets. He only caught 2 of those targets, though. He had 48 yards and a touchdown, though. Ended up with 12.8 DraftKings points, but he was, like a couple bombs away, like were fingertips, like got his fingertips on a couple bombs, which would have changed his day drastically and probably raised his price a bunch in this game. But, like he's catching 50-50 balls, and, it's going to give us another opportunity to try to use him in the captain again as a affordable captain that's going to open up some room for us with putting other guys in our lineup. Just a second, I'm going to take a drink here. I'm getting a dry throat. Just recovering from a cold here, guys. So we got Will Dissly. Dissly, there's going to be no Hayden Hurst again this week. So that's going to set up Dissly to get all the work as the tight end again, all the passing work. And the Ravens are giving out 13.9 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position. So that's going to set up Dissly to have a decent opportunity in this one. And he's only 6,400. So one of the better, cheaper pass catching options in this one. We also got, Bateman. Bateman was not affected negatively by Diontae Johnson. Got 5 targets. He had about the same amount of usage, as far as snaps and everything. And Bateman did not really deliver anything last week, but he's put up 17-point games, 25 points. He's perfectly capable of putting up a good game, and he's at 5,400. So in those lineups where we can't really afford to go with, say, Flowers, a guy like Bateman's going to make a good option for us to get a pass catcher in there with Lamar. Palmer, similar situation. Like he's a secondary receiver with Quentin Johnson and Lad McConkey, probably going to draw the main bulk of the ownership. Let's take a look at the the snap count. All right, so if you look over here at the snap count that he had last week, scroll down to the Chargers here. DJ Chark was a healthy inactive. If Chark if they ever decide to get Chark going, he's going to be a sneaky cheap guy. But it's look like he's just inactive every week. Jalen Reagor, keep him in mind as a cheap guy. He got 19% snap share. Joshua Palmer had a 76% snap share, so he was on the field a lot. He just wasn't getting any opportunities. Darius Davis, only 10% snap share. Lad McConkey, 73%. This is going to be important this week because we're probably going to have to dumpster dive a bit. So I'll just cover the Ravens here while I'm here as well. With Baltimore, we're looking at Zay Flowers with the 84 snap share. Tylan Wallace had a huge game a couple weeks ago. He had a 15% snap share. Bateman, 80%. Nelson Aguilar, 39%. So keep those in mind. Let's move over back to the DraftKings player pool. So that's going to make Joshua Palmer an option, like a guy to keep in our player pools at 5,200. He'll probably be the lowest owned of the guys just because he hasn't done anything this year. Kickers are in play. We're in a dome, and we're in a couple of offenses that can definitely move the ball, and there's going to be a bunch of field goal attempts likely. Mark Andrews is another guy that's going to be in play. The Chargers are middling against the tight end position. They're allowing 10.7 DraftKings points a game. Andrews got some decent work recently. He had 7 targets against Cincy. There was one game, I think that might have been the game where Isaiah likely got hurt or was out. But he's had several games with 4 or 5 targets. He's been muted largely for the most of the year, but he's had a few big games where he can pop off. He's at 4,600. He's a good guy for us to keep in our player pool if we're looking for guys in that range and we don't want to start a kicker. Likely, he played last week. He did play last week. It was the game versus Cincy that he was out in week 10. And that is where Andrews had his 18.8 DraftKings points. So when Likely was back, Andrews only had 4 DraftKings points and Likely ended up having 10 DraftKings points against Pittsburgh. So, it's basically a crapshoot between Andrews and Likely on which guy might pop off. Let's take a look at the snap shares on these tight ends as well while we're here. If we're going down to Baltimore, Andrews had a 61% and Likely had 49%. But I think, Andrews was probably doing a decent amount of blocking because he wasn't getting very many targets. Let's go back here. Let's look at the targets. Andrews had 3 targets against Pittsburgh and Likely had 5 targets versus Pittsburgh. So, it's kind of a crapshoot. Likely is probably more likely to get opportunities, but Andrews can always pop off. He's always been Lamar's favorite target prior to this year, so he can pop off at any time. Ravens D and Chargers D. I don't know if I want to touch the defenses this week, but in a shootout situation, defenses can always get a pick 6, so they're not completely out of the question. but I just not really into it. If you think the Chargers play from a lead, that's going to make Justice Hill interesting at 3,200. He comes in and kind of mops up when Derrick Henry is taken out of the game script. We've seen it a few times with him already, especially on a game script show against Buffalo. I think that was where we used him, and he ended up getting 21 DraftKings points. But, other than that, he hasn't really done too much. He's had a few weeks with double-digit points, so he's definitely still in play. It depends on your game script and which direction you want to go when you're telling how this game's going to play out. All right, so Diontae Johnson has not gotten a lot of work with Baltimore yet, but he was going off when he was with Carolina and had Andy Dalton as his quarterback. But he got traded to Baltimore and he's been like lost in the shuffle, which is what happens with receivers when they go to Baltimore because there's very little opportunity to go around, or like Lamar favors certain guys, and it just takes a lot of time to earn his trust. And Diontae Johnson hasn't got there yet, but he's at 3K. Uh, he's certainly a guy that could put up a big game. He's a guy that we're going to want to keep in our player pool. Same with Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards is playing his old team, kind of a revenge game, just like Dobbins. Um, he's at 2,800. If I was picking between Dobbins and Edwards, I would probably go with Edwards just for the obviously the salary discount. We could see Gus Edwards used if they get close to the end zone. I think he got some red zone opportunities last week. Dobbins ended up punching one in. One guy who's been the thorn in both these guys' sides when they hit the goal line has been Son Haskins. Keep an eye just in case they keep him inactive. He had one situation where he had like 3 goal line attempts and he failed to convert, and then fourth down they brought in Dobbins and Dobbins converted. So maybe that experiment is over. But he's been getting a lot of goal line carries the past few weeks. It's almost like he's a specialist for goal line carries, and it was really frustrating with owning Gus Edwards last week and seeing like Edwards was doing pretty good running and getting the ball to the end zone, to the goal line, and then Haskins would come in and poach the opportunities down there. But yeah, keep that in mind with Haskins. $200. We may have to dumpster dive in this one, and that's going to be one of our opportunities there while we're in this dumpster diving section. Jalen Rager at 800. He's going to be another guy with opportunity. I think he had 19% snap share. We just looked at him. Tylan Wallace is down here at 1,600. Keaton Mitchell hasn't done anything since he got back from his injury, but they've been having success with Justice Hill as the backup to Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry really, like he takes up so much workload that there's not really a lot to go around. So let's dig into this lineup build. It's going to be a high scoring game, I think. A lot of back and forth. Sorry, guys. I've done a few shows today, so my voice is giving out on me. So let's go with captain option. I want to go in this mid range because I don't want to overpay for a captain with the amount of guys that we're going to have to get into our lineups. So I want to look probably right above this, QB range, the backup QB range. And I'm looking at Disley, Johnson, and McConkey as my favorite probably captain options. I'm going to go with Johnson. We went with him last week. I'm going to stick with that thinking. He's in another good matchup. Last week it was Cincinnati, and this week, it's Baltimore, so two good matchups in a row. Uh, he had his opportunities last week. He had a few bombs thrown his way. He just wasn't able to convert. They touched his hands. He's getting a lot of air yards. Let's say that he converts this week. Let's get Jackson in there. I want to put Henry in there. Let's get Herbert in there too. I want to go down a little bit with a cheaper guy. If we want to get a guy like Disley in there, that's going to leave us with 300. That puts us in a spot where we're looking at Haskins, who I just spoke about. Keep an eye on Vidal's status too, because if he plays, like he might be a guy worth considering. I'm guessing with Gus Edwards back, Vidal is going to be inactive again. Fisk got some opportunity last week. He had 2 targets against Cincinnati. With the Chargers giving up 13.9, I mean the Ravens giving up 13.9 DraftKings points to the tight end position. Maybe we want to use Fisk instead of Disley. Let's say Disley, Fisk is able to poach a opportunity there. It leaves us with Bateman as an option, Palmer as an option in the kickers. Andrews likely. A lot of options there that we can go if we put like Fisk in there to kind of take over that tight end role. But I really don't like doing that. I like Disley a lot this week. I would rather take my chances with Haskins. And I don't really see like too much else that I like down in that range. There's not a lot of guys that get opportunity. So that's one direction that we can go. If we want to take out Johnson and maybe put Disley in that captain, let's assume maybe Disley catches a couple touchdowns. He's going to be low owned, obviously. Most of the captain ownership is going to go to the high price guys. So we're all automatically going to be building our lineups differently. If we get Disley in there, it's going to put us at 4,100 per guy. Let's get Johnson in there. Leaves us with 800. That puts us in Rager range. If we wanted to go high priced, let's see where that would get us. Let's say we want to use Henry. And let's say because we got Henry in there, we're gonna go away from Jackson in this one. Let's say we got Herbert, and I want to put him with a couple pass catchers because I'm assuming they're playing from behind and they're playing against the pass funnel defense. McConkey questionable. Limited practice towards the end of the week, so keep an eye on McConkey's status. If he's out, then it's going to make Disley and Johnson even better, and it'll make Palmer in play even more so in play, I should say. Let's put McConkey. Let's put Johnson in there. This is with 3,500 per guy. Let's put Gus Edwards in there. No, Gus Edwards. Let's put one of these. Let's put one of these tight ends in here. Let's put Likely in there, the cheaper guy. That leaves us with 2,600. I mean, Aguilar's not a horrible option. Wallace, we saw have a big game a couple weeks ago. Rager, you got to assume that like no matter what direction we go, with so many of these guys, like being studs, we're gonna have to go dumpster diving a little bit. There's gonna be one of these scrubs that's gonna end up being in the optimal lineup, I'm guessing. If we wanted to, let's say McConkey's out, and we want to put in Palmer, it's gonna leave us with 6,400 in this situation. I mean, that gets us to Disley. So I don't hate that. Although I don't like necessarily having 3 pass catchers with Herbert. They have a potential to be low volume. But let's put Disley in. Let's take Quentin Johnson out. Really doesn't get us anything. It doesn't get us up to Flowers or anything like that. So let's say we want to put Flowers in. And that leaves us with 2,200. So that puts us in that Wallace range again. And, guys like Rager and stuff like that if we go lower. So it's kind of difficult to do. Let's put Herbert in the captain. He's been playing well. He's got a good passing matchup. He might be low owned because quarterbacks are people caught on to quarterbacks not really being that valuable in Showdown as captains. Let's put Quentin Johnson in there. We got Herbert to Johnson and Disley. Let's put Henry in this one too. And let's give we got 4,900 per guy. Let's put Tucker in there. This explains why, like maybe Lamar's not necessarily in there. He's not throwing any touchdowns. We could put in Andrews, likely, one of the defenses. You got a double kicker if you want to go that direction. Let's see. If we want to take Disley out and put in McConkey, I think McConkey and Johnson are the better options to roll with a Herbert captain. You could put Aguilar. We got Mitchell as an option. We got Wallace. I'd probably go Aguilar or Wallace. I like Mitchell a lot, but he's just not getting the opportunity with the guys in front of him. So, a few directions there. I'll have more complete thoughts closer to lock. Give me the 30 likes so I can put out that, like those thoughts in the comments, or put out a shorter video closer to lock. And, we'll figure out what's going on, like the best way to go, best direction to go with this. But I think I like those mid-range guys as captain options. I don't hate the Justin Herbert option either as a captain. I think that Herbert's going to be busy this week, and it's going to be a total pass funnel game for the Chargers. So I like the passing game of the Chargers a lot. I like Disley. He's sticking out to me, especially with no Hayden Hurst this week, and he's been a guy that Herbert's been leaning on lately. I just like the passing game of the Chargers in this one for obvious reasons. There's nothing like sneaky about it, but we can get a little bit sneaky with a guy like Quentin Johnson and the captain. We used him last week. We can just go right back to him and hope that those balls that he barely missed, he caught, and it leads to a like a 20+ DraftKings point game instead of a 12 DraftKings point game. So, all right, guys, I will see you guys later, and good luck.